The truth about Sati. Today, people casually throw around the word Sati to shame Hindu culture, calling it barbaric without understanding its real history. But here is the brutal truth they don't teach you. Sati was never a core Hindu practice. It was rare, isolated to certain warrior clans, and even there, not universal. In ancient India, widow remarriage was common, especially among common people, merchants, and even some royal families. Widows could remarry, become scholars, spiritual seekers, or simply live independent lives. The idea that a woman's life ended with her husband's death was not mainstream Hindu dharma. So, what changed? The Islamic invasion. From the 11th century onwards, Muslim invaders, starting with Mahmud of Ghazni, Muhammad Ghori, and later Delhi sultans, launched brutal campaigns across India. Women were primary targets. Capturing Hindu women, particularly royal women, was seen as a sign of Islamic victory. Women of defeated Hindu kingdoms were abducted, raped, sold in slave markets, paraded in humiliation, or forced into harems. Faced with horrific fate, some Hindu communities, especially the Rajputs, made a terrible choice. They would rather die with dignity than be violated and enslaved. Thus, Jauhar, mass self-immolation by women, and Sati, a widow choosing to die with her husband rather than fall into enemies' hands, became more common. It was an act of wartime desperation, not a religious ritual. Famous examples include Rani Padmini of Chittorgarh committing Johar during Alauddin Khilji's siege in 1303 CE. Countless Rajput queens and noble women chose flames over slavery during successive invasions. It was Islamic brutality, not Hindu scripture, that pushed Sati into wider practice. And even then, Hindu scriptures like the Vedas and Smritis never mandated Sati. In fact, ancient texts like Rig Veda blessed the widow for a new life after her husband's death. In Mahabharata, with an exception to Madri, the mother of Nakula and Sahadeva of 5 Pandavas, none of them committed Sati despite losing their husbands, and there are accounts of widow remarriage. Smriti laws allowed and encouraged widowhood with dignity, not burning on a pyre. Sati only rose in desperate pockets under Islamic rule, when to live meant dishonor and lifelong slavery. But colonial British propaganda and later Marxist historians falsely portrayed Sati as a Hindu custom to demonize Sanatana Dharma while erasing the context of Islamic savagery. The truth is simple. Sati was a shield, not a sword. It was an act of self-defense against brutal invaders, not a celebration of death. We must never deny that Sati was misused in certain periods by selfish individuals for personal gain, control, or greed. That truth stands. But to use those distortions to vilify Sanatana Dharma itself is intellectual dishonesty. A weaponized version of a practice does not define the fate it was born in. Sati was not a command of Dharma, it was a reaction to invasion and later a tool abused by a few. We must condemn the misuse but never forget the root. If Islamic invasions had never happened, Sati would have remained an obscure, rare phenomenon. When Islamic hordes stormed into Bharat, they tore apart temples, enslaved men, and dragged women into filthy harems. But our women, daughters of fire, refused to bow. They chose to become sacred offerings to Agni rather than be paraded, raped, and sold like cattle. Our women chose dignity, not slavery. And yet today, cowards mock Sati without telling the world why it happened. It was not Sanatana Dharma that built the funeral pyres, it was Islamic brutality. It was not colonizers or outsiders who ended Sati. It was Hindus themselves who saw that once a sacred act of choice was being corrupted into cruelty. Saints, reformers, kings, and thinkers with a Hindu fold, like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, supported by Hindu society, stood up and said, "This is not Dharma, this is the spirit of Sanatana Dharma." The courage corrects itself when a line is crossed. Unlike dogmatic systems, Hindus don't need invaders to shame them into reform. They carry reform in their own conscience. The North remembers because it has no choice. Its soil is soaked in the blood of ancestors who fought to the last breath. Kerala and parts of the South forgot because geography shielded them from the sword. But history does not stay forgotten forever. A nation that mocks its own scars become easy prey for new invaders. A people that laugh at their mother's sacrifices will soon watch chains being forged around their own children's necks. The North bled to warn you. The question is, will you listen before it's too late, or will you wait for the sword to reach your own doorstep? For Tatastu Bharat, Arya Shruti. Jai Hind.